The subcommittee will come to order to receive testimony on the President's budget request for the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps for fiscal year 26. I'll begin by welcoming the Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan, Acting Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral James Kirby, Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Eric Smith. We're obviously grateful to each of you for your willingness to lead at a pivotal moment for the department, and to the sailors, Marines, and civilian personnel who advance Navy and Marine Corps missions and keep America safe every day. I'm particularly grateful to the sailors who have stood watch in the Gulf and the Red Sea over the last 20 months, helping to defend Israel, U.S. interests, and freedom of navigation against Iran-backed terrorists. And to the crews deployed there right now who launched Tomahawk cruise missiles as part of the joint operation to strike what I hope is a fatal blow to Iran's nuclear aspirations. I also want to recognize the Marine Corps, whose fallen comrades were among the earliest victims of Iran's decades-long war against the United States and Israel, those taken hostage with U.S. Embassy personnel in Tehran, and the hundreds killed in Beirut back in 1983 before any of us up here were in Washington. Generations of service members carrying the scars of Iran-backed attacks on American personnel in the region over the decades. Their sacrifices remind us that death to America is more than just rhetoric. For too long, Tehran itself faced negligible costs for its actions of their terrorist proxies. Thanks to Israel's initiative in turning the tables and the President's decision to back them up, the Islamic Republic is finally paying a steep price. This weekend's events are yet a further reminder of the challenges facing the joint force today. And my colleagues and I hope to understand the extent to which you think the President's budget request would provide the resources necessary to meet, deter, and defeat them. Each of the services is grappling in its own way with the reality of renewed major power competition and with the increasing alignment of America's adversaries. As you know, major transformations test assumptions and service culture. They test the capacity of the industrial base. And importantly, they hinge on transparent working relations with Congress and on robust and consistent full-year investments in major priorities. I'll offer just a few observations in this vein. First, the good. Secretary Phelan, I've appreciated your recognition of Congress' role in equipping the Navy and Marine Corps and the collaborative approach you've taken with the subcommittee. Your willingness to communicate transparently will continue to benefit our shared mission of restoring the Navy's preeminence. I also appreciate your persistent engagement with the maritime industrial base. Your travels to see our shipbuilding challenges across the country firsthand have not gone unnoticed. We'll not solve this problem without the private sector. Likewise, General Smith, the Marine Corps spent years developing a clear rationale for major transformation, made tough and deliberate choices, and engaged Congress to effectively along the way. Marine Corps Force Design 2030 continues to offer other services valuable lessons as they pursue transformations of their own. Look forward to hearing how the Marine Corps' own transformation to meet future threats. How's it going? The good, the bad, and the ugly. But to be quite frank, the decisions this administration has made on resourcing the Department of Defense, a full-year CR that failed to address rising costs of operations and maintenance and major modernization requirements, a one-time reconciliation investment that risks new cliffs for sustainment, and a base request for this fiscal year of fiscal 26 even lower than the previous administration's 25 request. All of that makes your jobs more difficult. At the most basic level, a fiscal 26 base defense top line that doesn't keep pace with inflation, let alone with the pacing threat of the PRC, does not show that we're serious about the tasks that are before us. Neither does pretending that one-time injections of funding are a substitute for consistent appropriations. For example, none of you needs me to point out the breadth of bipartisan support for accelerating procurement of Virginia-class submarines. If the administration shares our interest in meaningfully expanding shipbuilding capacity, why are investments like this one not built into the basic budget request? Why are we allocating funds under extraordinary parliamentary authorities for capabilities that would otherwise have been funded in an annual appropriation? Will the Navy even be able to complete 2 Virginia-class subs with reconciliation money before the funding actually expires? Leaving aside the color of money, we also want to hear your assessment of the impediments to delivering essential capabilities like submarines, destroyers, and amphibious vessels at the speed of relevance. This subcommittee has been consistently generous, but despite pouring billions more dollars into the effort, the timeline for producing a Virginia-class sub continues to stretch longer. Of course, we don't just need to build platforms faster. We need to figure out how to make munitions more efficiently, especially the special missile, defense interceptors, and long-range fires on which current operations are relying very heavily. How has the Navy handled the high operational tempo of the Red Sea? How does the fiscal 26 request reflect the urgent need to deepen our magazines in a more cost-efficient manner? Finally, I'm curious about the lessons your services are taking from the current conflicts. What's the Navy learned from the demands of long deployments and the costs of air wing accidents on USS Truman? What lessons is the service taking from Ukraine's decimation of Russia's Black Sea fleet? How is the Navy approaching force protection itself? Is it hardening major assets both in port and at sea? Does it have sufficient resources to do both? What is the Marine Corps learning from Russia's ground war in Ukraine? How does information sharing at the cutting edge of modern warfare inform the service's ongoing transformation effort? To what extent is success in the face of unique Indo-Pacific circumstances dependent on things outside of your control, like logistics and transportation provided by other services or commands? We'll be curious for each of your observations. I would suggest that any honest accounting of the task at hand will have to reckon with the deficiencies of the defense top line. If our objective is to build a force capable of projecting power globally, to deter, fight, and prevail against Chinese aggression, possibly while engaged in a conflict in some other theater, I don't see how this budget request gets us there. So we'll look forward to your testimony in just a moment. Our colleague, Senator Schatz, is filling in for the ranking member, Senator Coons. With that, let me turn it over to Senator Schatz.